Hello everyone, so welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about whether or not you should do A-level maths. And I started filming this video and it basically just became this long rambly talk of me talking about maths and how much I hated maths as a child. So I'm just going to skip that out or put that in a different video. I am planning to do a video on how I got an A-star in A-level maths. So this isn't going to be the same as that. This is going to be more on whether or not it will be for you and sort of comparing like the step up from GCSE to A-level. So at GCSE I got an A-star somehow, I don't know, again I can talk about that in another video. And in AS I got an A. I got a B in S1, a B in C2, and I got like 97 in C1. So if I hadn't got that in C1 then I wouldn't have got an A overall. But I actually have my A-level results video. I talk about all my UMS for all my papers that I did and all my modules, because I did S1, D1, M1, S2, FP1 and all the cores, so I will link that down below if you want to go and have a look. So let's talk about A-level maths. So my GCSE maths I think was a lot stronger than I thought that it was, mostly because I never felt like I was that good, but when I got to A-level I pretty much remembered everything. Like there were some things that I just never remember being taught, like completing the square. I don't remember ever doing that at GCSE, apparently that's at GCSE. And also like in general my quadratics, I knew how to factorize and I knew how to use the formula, but I didn't have a good understanding of how it related to the graphs. So you definitely don't need to be perfect at maths to do A-level maths. If your understanding isn't there, A-level maths will fill in the gaps. I'm pretty sure everyone and every teacher says that if you want to do A-level maths, you need to be really good at algebra, and that is definitely true. You need to have strong algebra and quite good, I think, sort of graphs, like quite good understanding of graphs. Things that I don't think are that important, so for example, you don't necessarily need to be good at any of the statistical side unless you're doing S1. That would obviously be useful, but if your school's not doing that, although I think most do, you don't need to be too good at histograms and box plots and mean, median, mode, stuff like that. I think you probably, it's not that important, but like I said, I think most schools do S1 anyway, so that'll probably come in useful. You in general don't have as many, in fact you have barely any sort of like worded questions at A-level. So if you really struggled with worded questions, they don't really come up that much. I mean, there are certain topics where they do come up, but it's pretty much graphs, like especially at AS. That's what I can remember. One thing that you really need to be good at is trig, and what I mean by that is like trigonometry. So SOHCAHTOA, finding angles and sides, really that should be quite easy. So if you're struggling at that, in AS it's not too big of a deal, but in A2 there's a lot of trig, but then again that's not based on GCSE, that's based on the AS. So there's a lot of trig, and I think a lot of people, including myself, find that quite hard initially. So I'm talking about the graphs of sine and cos as well as triangles. And also you use them like almost separate to the shapes. So like the trigonometry is less about triangles and circles and finding angles and sides and things like that, and becomes a lot more about the graphs. And I know a lot of people don't actually touch on the graphs at GCSE. I'm lucky because we did, and basically you have to know about finding solutions. I don't know, it probably won't make sense until you've actually done it, but that is quite difficult, and it's definitely, you want to be quite comfortable with knowing what they are. So sine is opposite over adjacent and cos is adjacent over hypotenuse, etc. Things like that, and how to find angles, so comfortable with using inverse, sine and cos, and I think that's pretty much all you do at GCSE that I can remember. Also be really useful to know the difference between linear, quadratic graphs. I forget that there's a new GCSE math, so I think you also have to know cubic and maybe exponential. But in general, things like powers, surds, things like that, really need to be good at them. They come up all the time. They're usually easy, and people do lose marks, especially in C1 where there's no calculator. I'm not sure how it is in the new spec exactly, in the new math spec, but you really need to be good at thirds and things like that, because that comes up a lot, as well as algebraic fractions and general rearranging formulas. Obviously you won't be able to rearrange all types of formulas at GCSE, but most of them you should be able to do, and that should be fine. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the different modules that I did. So I only have two textbooks. I only have two textbooks still. So I'm going to talk about M1. So if you're doing physics, you're most likely to do M1. And M1 is probably, weirdly, the most similar to GCSE, because M1 has a lot of those sort of worded questions, and like, this falls over here and this moves over there and whatever. And I really hated M1, but I actually think it was the module I did best in, like, of the applied modules. I think you have to do M1 now, don't you? Anyway, it has sort of like, I mean, just look, this is some questions, look how wordy they are, and there's loads of information. I think it's quite nice in the sense that the questions are quite sort of interesting, and you're, like, I don't mind worded questions, like, sometimes they're a bit more interesting, but it does mean that the information can be hidden within, so it's definitely quite important to be able to sort of get information out of the worded questions. Like I said, in courts, questions like that don't often come up. They come up sort of in, what's that topic called? Geometric sequences, so percentages basically, and yeah, essentially usually questions revolving around percentages, so they'll talk about banks or cars and buying things and interest and stuff like that. That's sort of where it does come up. You also need basic vector knowledge. It's likely that your teacher will go over vectors, and your teacher will go over quadratics and go over all these things, so don't worry too much. I think it's like I said, the most important thing is to be able to remember the methods of it, as opposed to actually understanding how everything links, because I think in A-level it becomes quite clear, like you're able to understand what you're doing and why you're doing things and how they're all linked in patterns, whereas at GCSE, if you can just remember how to do things, should be not too bad to go on. That's what I found anyway, that just knowing how to do things, even if I had no understanding of them, definitely helped me. In terms of statistics, I'm trying to think, this is S2, so this is, I don't know if this will be maybe in A-level or in further maths, because I did this as part of further maths. There isn't a whole lot you can prepare for. Obviously you're learning a lot of new stuff, so you just have to wait until you learn it to see if you'll be good at it or not. One thing as well that I feel like is quite different is how they're marked. So obviously our papers will be different from your papers, but in general, for example in A-level, just because you have the right answer doesn't mean that you will get any marks. You have to show your working out, and you have to show your steps. It's a really good habit to get into, of just writing everything out, and it also makes your work clear, and it means you can check it more easily. I mean, I know that like it can be quite long. Like I feel like I was quite a messy student. I had really bad handwriting, and I would just write all over the place and make little notes to myself, like of calculations I was doing. But it'd be much better to just write, like you can just get into the habit of doing everything like in lines and really clearly, and even writing like what things are, so you don't forget. And because I make so many silly mistakes, that really helped me to look at my work and to check my work, and it also makes it really easy to mark as well. Like I said, there are a lot of questions actually for us that will like show this or show that, and it would like give you something and then give you what it wants at the end, and it's all about doing the intermediate steps and figuring it out, and those often can be quite hard. The step up for me from AS to A2 was absolutely ridiculous. Like I went from finding AS quite straightforward, quite easy. I mean, I had some trouble with S1, but in general I found it absolutely fine, and I found it my best subject by far. And in A2 I felt like there was a massive drop. I found C3 so difficult. Like the trigonometry, I just could not get my head around it. I think I hadn't truly mastered it in AS, so I found that I just couldn't, I wasn't building on top of like solid information I knew. I was building on top of like shaky, not quite sure, can't remember. So definitely when you do your AS Trig, make sure you've got that down. Also, I found C4 a massive step up from C3. Like, it might have been like not just A2 but like another whole other thing. Like, literally I found it a lot harder. There was so much integration, and I found integration differentiation quite easy, and I felt like I really understood it in year 12, but in year 13 it's just something else. Although now I do feel like I could differentiate and integrate anything. I mean, I probably can't because it's only A-level maths, not like degree level maths, but I literally found that I just found it so difficult, and it made me so down. Like, I literally felt so stressed out about it. I was so like upset, and I'm going to talk about this in my university application video, but I was struggling to get predictions for like A star, and then I wasn't even getting A's, and I just felt so down about it. And maybe I was being like dramatic, and maybe even now I'm still being dramatic, but I literally found it so stressful. And I was in a new class, and I didn't really like my class. I didn't really like my old class or my new class, and I felt like I was bottom of the class. It was like reliving how maths was in year 8 for me, and I just felt so down, and I felt like everybody else was getting it and I wasn't, and I was like, why? Like, what is going wrong here? I hadn't changed how I was revising compared like in year 12 at all, so I was just so confused. But I don't know, I guess all I can say is you just gotta stick through it. But like I said, I'm gonna do a whole other video on how I got an A star in maths, how I somehow did. I don't know, sometimes like I just look back at my exams and think I was so blessed with some of the questions that came up, but it's very easy to say that like in hindsight, but when you're actually doing it, obviously it's very different. Now, some people maybe who really struggled with maths, maybe like who failed maths or whatever, would probably hate what I'm about to say, but basically I don't think that I am naturally very good, or maybe it was my primary school, but I don't think I'm very good at doing maths in my head or doing maths quickly. And obviously I'm comparing myself to my peers in my maths classes, so in the grand scheme of the whole world, okay, maybe I'm okay, but like I don't really know my times tables very well. I used to work at Kumon, which is like a maths and English tuition place, and I learnt so much when I was working there in year 12 and year 13. So literally that goes to show that there were literally 8-year-olds at Kumon who were better than me at maths, and I was learning their methods whilst teaching them their methods. And yeah, so I don't think I'm very good, and a lot of people can do things so quickly, and it's not just like 1 or 2 people. It seems like everyone can do it, but I can't times big numbers in my head. I never learned how to do long division or short division in primary school. I literally learnt long division when I did that topic in C2, what's it called? I mean, you do like algebraic long division. So even now I can't redo long division, but I can do it algebraically, which is ridiculous, but yeah, so I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do the neat multiplication method. I do the grid method, where you like draw out the grids and then add them using the column method or whatever it is. But yeah, but I was like, don't worry if you feel the same. Like I said, it's so much more dependent on algebra, and I feel like I'm okay. I was okay at algebra. I didn't feel like I was really good, but I felt like I was okay at that, and I feel like I'm really, like, now looking back, I feel like I was quite good at understanding graphs as well, which may be something I took for granted, but graphs and algebra definitely were my strong points. So don't worry if you don't know your 7 times table, because I don't. I literally have to think of like numbers near to, yeah, anyway. So don't worry about that if you're not that good at it, and because they're not testing how quick you are, they're not testing how good you are at timesing big numbers in your head. They're not testing that. They're testing like your understanding and your logic, basically. It's almost like investigating. That's what I think. Like they'll give you something and they'll give you all this information, and you have to use your maths knowledge to put bits together. It's quite sort of like working things out and figuring stuff out, using lots of different things. And sometimes you'll have to use something from a completely different topic and you'll have to bring that in, and which I really liked. Is problem solving. That's what the word I'm looking for, problem solving. And it's difficult to know whether you're good at that until you really try. So obviously it's worth the try. So I think that's pretty much all I have to say on like in terms of like preparing for maths. I know a lot of people have already started school already, but it's never too late to change or drop. But the biggest thing I would say is make sure you know how to do things from GCSE. Like I said, understanding, okay, that can come a bit later, but know how to do methods and trig. That's the other one. It's good to have really good trig, and I feel like I was quite lucky in that we did spend quite a bit of time on that. But obviously, I think everyone can name 3 or 4 shit maths teachers that they've had, because it's rare that you get a good one, or at least in my school was. So yeah, and also in general, a life tip: don't compare yourself to other people. I always compared myself to other people in the class and would think, why are they so quick at this? Why have they understood this straight away? Why have they, why are they able to answer all the questions? I'm stuck on this question. But just try. I mean, it's very easy for me to say, I wasn't actually very good at this. Just try to ignore that. But in the end, it never turned out that my predictions were at all correct, and if you just try to focus on yourself, you're learning what you understand, what you don't understand. Don't worry if you don't get things. Who gets things straight away? I really do. And it's just important that you try to focus on yourself and not other people, because like I said, it never turns out how you think. The loudest people rarely, the people who like to boast about how good they are at maths, it rarely turns out that they do well. Maybe that's not really fair about doing well, but do you know what I mean? Essentially, try and focus on yourself. I think, be honest with yourself. Do you get this? Am I revising enough? Have I done enough papers? And if you're honest with yourself, then there won't be any surprises, essentially. Okay, I think that's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed this. I'll be doing my psychology one. That'll be up very soon. Might actually just film that now, but yes. That's it for this video. If you have any questions, like I said, I'm going to be doing a whole different video about how I specifically revise, my techniques for that, my tips in a whole different video. And if you want to check out my biology, chemistry ones, then that'll be linked down below, as well as my A-level results videos. So that's it. Okay, hope you enjoyed it. Bye.